what I'm talking about is this. So, what you only want to I don't quite remember exactly where I was in the old bookstore. And I was seeking at the time. I'm still seeking, but not like then. And someone just casually pointed out to me, you will find more the truth about history if you look in the occult department than looking in the history department, because the history is not in the history department. That is the story that's being told. Look for the information in the occult section, because they're more likely to tell you about what's really going on. At least your imagination can get a glimpse, and you can go read into what's going on. Mm-hmm. By the stuff you're reading in the history books is valued on what date this happened and what date that happened. It ain't got nothing to do with what the fuck you got to be doing out here in this life at this time. My point is just that I think people should look for other sources, like what you were saying in the article you wrote. Like when you presented me with this fellow who called me a piano player.
That's the textbook I was quoting from.
Right.
The one that got it wrong.
I have it in my files on the computer where this fellow wrote an article, and he's talking about Vernon Reid. He's a fan of Vernon Reid, and he's talking about how Vernon Reid played with Defunct, and oh, by the way, he might have played with a fellow named Ron Sanders Jackson with some experimental music. Now, he sent me an apology because he just took it from somebody else he had copied it from. Mm-hmm. The point is, who put those kind of things out in the first place? I know Howard Mandel put out some negative shit about me, and I don't know why, because I never did anything wrong to him. Plus, he had already gave some very positive reviews of my records, but then he started spelling my name wrong and saying, anyway, go ahead.
That just reminded me of something. You know how I search for your name and I send you that stuff now?
Yeah.
I'm going to set up another alert on Google for that wrong spelling of your name and see who's doing that.
And it could be on Shannon Jackson also.
I'll search for that. But what I was trying to do in that paper is it's just the beginning of something, which is having heard your story at such length and seen what a real life story is. It's complicated. And it's not easy to, it's people writing books, it's like they're up in a plane looking down from a great height and they can say, well, all that's the same, I'm going to label that this.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take this perspective that I have from having heard all of these stories and all these things that you've experienced and heard the music and kind of look up from the complexity of that story and say that story that is being told up at that level has to change.
That's
because these labels don't fit. We need to start again.
They never did fit. Just like we knew. But by the time we read on the back of the album covers in those days, we're talking about if you can get, and it's not possible for you to do it because you're not from that era, but from the era I come from, we used to get albums.
Me too, I have albums with liner notes on the back.
And the liner notes on the back. But we understood, we already know, oh, that's not a group. This is what's them making some money.
Yeah.
Doing a record date. But when it started out with groups though. You can see that ease in of what the record companies can do, what the corporations can do. They can come in and say, okay, yeah, Billy, we like the way you swing on drums. What's the name wants to make a record? Why don't you make a record with so and so? You know. So now then you have all these different people who were in a group before. You know, the first group that I was totally fascinated with was Art Blakely Jazz Messengers. That group with Doug Watkins and Donald Byrd and Hank Mobley and Horace Silvers and Art Blakely. But then there are different versions of the jazz messages that start coming out.
But it was still a band, right? You can
always,
see concert films of Freddie Hubbard and Wayne Shorter, and
but what kept it a band? What was the defining thing about that band? And I'll tell you exactly what it was. Art Blakey.
Art Blakey, yeah.
You know, now here you had this swing element. The same, if in a different way from another tribe, you got Elvin Jones, and then from another tribe, you got Philly Jones. Talking about swing, man. Look here, this stuff is, to me, to go into my head and listen to some and visit back some places, things I saw. No, that ain't happening now. That ain't happening now. But you have to also go back and understand what helped create those things. You know, when I first got to New York, I was working in a what do you call them, burlesque house. We don't have no burlesque house no more. We got strip joints now, right? But it was burlesque shows there. You know, I had to play a bump and grind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with a saxophone player. Him in China, his wife's name was China. What's that boy's name? Charles something. Anyway, he was from down there in Philadelphia. But anyway, you had the circuses. And like you're going to have in October the thing over the Dallas Fair. And each state has, in most big cities have their own fairs. Mm-hmm. So you had all these traveling musicians who could play at all these places. Then you had the tent revivals and shit going on. All this shit mixed up. You got some hell of a people coming out. You look at Spike Lee. When I started off a while ago by talking about Chris Blackwell. He not only put out my record, he's the first one to put out Spike Lee's new movie too. She Gotta Have It. He also happened to be the one who was able to get U2 to sign, which kept him living after shit went crazy for a while. But this shit would never go crazy because he's from such a wealthy, established family. Mm-hmm. But the point I made about him is no, that's not so. Jonathan Rose was able to get into distribution. But who is Jonathan Rose? Do you know who Jonathan Rose is?
Son of Frederick Rose, who is in New York real estate.
Right. Who, right now, I think they still lease the stadium over there in Jersey from the Rose family. Most of them buildings downtown, the Rose family.
My wife worked with him, not directly, but when she was raising money for that building at Lincoln Center,
mm-hmm.
He was the major secret unnamed donor that they couldn't name until the unveiling, but that was him, Fred Rose.
His son, Jonathan.
Producer of people like David Sanborn.
But how did he become a producer? It wasn't that just he come from he got money overnight like Bill Gates. We're talking about people coming from established money. That's what I mean by Chris Blackwell. You know, Bill Gates is, whatever he's doing, that's new money and is able to do a lot of shit. But I'm at the tail end of when wasn't just money. You had to be somebody too, like from connected with so and so and so and so and so and so, you know.
John Hammond.
Case in point. The picture in the room and the other picture in the room in there it's just a picture of me. That was at an audition with Albert Allen for John Hammond. He used to come here, Albert Allen, all the time. He was interested in it. Mm-hmm. But he couldn't figure out how to make it work on Columbia. Because it had already gotten to the point where, you know, people didn't have any kind of influence they had when Columbia made, or when, what's her name, Ruth Brown made Atlantic Records, which Ogmar Erdeman left a statement saying, you can sell black music anywhere in the planet. That's a heavy statement. You know, there's Russian music, there's Chinese music, there's Mexican music, there's European music. Oh, there's all kind of music. But black American music, you can sell all over the planet. Now that's a heavy fucking statement there.
It is.
I remember when they were trying to sell Garth Brooks over in Germany. And you can pass the biggest record store, they have his posters and more records and nothing, you pushing everything else out the way. The idiots didn't think about the fact that most people over there are not running around talking in English no goddamn way. So what they gonna be buying this goddamn country ass western shit for? You know, that's the kind of stupidity. And then to turn around with that same stupidity and go into Iraq 20 years later. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a 20-year period down there later. The same kind of stupidity. It's like one historian, and this is a Jewish historian, he said the problem we have is we're the keepers of the history and writers of history, but we don't learn from history our damn self. And that's deep.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever do any projects with Andrew Hill?
No, I know he passed away. On that talk, I'm talking about.
What did Ornette say about it?
He just mentioned he had passed. He had already passed, right? I came to town a little after Andrew Hill had gotten there. I was able to get into the clique of the mains through Hicks. Actually, it was two things. Hicks, and I sat in with Toshiko Mariana and Herb Bushler while Mingus was on break, and he heard me play.
Mm-hmm.
The other situation working with Betty Carter was through my roommate John Hicks. Andrew Hill came to town, I think, a little before Hicks. You know,
mm-hmm.
I'm not sure of this, but I think he did. I kind of think he had a record out a long time before Hicks got. I think the first Blue Note record Hicks was on was with one of Hank Mobley's records. You know, and they were all so fucked up they couldn't play. And I know for a damn fact. But they wasn't back playing because they were just making the money. They were just paying the rent. That's what getting high and trying to pay the rent if you had enough left.
So that amuses you now to have people worshiping the Blue Note sound and transcribing those solos and
yeah, because of the goddamn like people believing every word in the Bible. It's just as backwards and ignorant to me.
It's like what?
It's just as backwards to me.
About what about the Bible?
Believing every word in the Bible.
Oh, okay.
Or believing it. Even after the fact that they did this thing, computer analysis of St. John or John, the chapters of John in the Bible. There's 14 chapters of John. Only 4 of them were written by one person who wrote the rest. And we mean none of them were written by the same. Others written by the same person either. Who wrote the rest of them? You know, nobody asked no questions. And my mother told me, you know, I guess you realize I couldn't read or whatever that was, and I had a hard time hearing. I had a very hard time hearing. I used to have earaches, serious earaches. But she always said, "Ask why." You know, what's the reason behind it? And you look at stuff and ask yourself, well, why? And yeah, it's funny to me because I was fucked up too. And I thought about that today. I said, well, actually, if you really want to teach people, if you really want people to become conscious, if you really wanted everybody to become conscious, then you'd legalize marijuana. Because people do become conscious, and people do think smoking marijuana. It's that alcohol that gets them drunk and fucked up and run into shit. Mm-hmm. Now, if you really want them to become conscious quick, let them start shooting some heroin. Oh, they'd wake up very quickly.
Into an addiction.
It's an addiction, but it's an addiction to something that's on this planet, that's growing on this planet, and these fools is putting people in jail, ain't got nothing to do with the goddamn shit except put people in jail for it. It grows on the planet. Marijuana is not a drug. It is a herb, a plant. It ain't nobody. It's that ignorant shit these stupid people from down here put on it. A reefer madness and all that shit. What was that about? Racism. Oh, a white girl might give a black man some pussy. White women been giving black men pussy ever since they've been around black men and gonna be giving them pussy. You know? Why? Because just like my uncle and when they went to Germany. The ignorant fools, the white men over there, Germans over there, oh, don't mess with them black men because they got tail between their legs. What the fuck they say that shit for? Because them bitches were after every black soldier they could get there, give me your tail. This shit is crazy. You ask me, why am I laughing about the drug shit? Yeah, it's funny to me. It's like I tell a friend of mine all the time, they say, what you gonna do when you get older and you can't do nothing? Give me some heroin. because it's the best thing on the goddamn planet. Ain't nothing like it. And I know. And I stay away from it every day. You talking about an addiction, that's an addiction. Mm-hmm. But you can't control it.